Well, I think it was one of the biggest tragedies in which millions of people were killed. There was a lot of coverage. I was working for international media at that point, and there was a lot. I think that was the biggest story in the world at that point of time. It has shaken the world, and I think there was also quite a lot of coverage in Pakistani press. May not be first-hand, but obviously through international agencies or wire agencies, but still a lot of reporting was going on. What has affected people most was the way the murder took place. It was actually the entire, almost in some areas, the entire population was wiped out. And the killing was much more brutal. It reminded people of some barbarians, and that period where people were killed, or the weapons which was used. It was in fact actually the fighting between the two tribes. But some other countries also got involved. People because those tribes were also inhabiting the other countries or the neighboring countries. So it became kind of not only it remained in that particular area, but it is spread across the borders also. I think this kind of brutalities shake the country people. But what happens actually is just a fleeting moment, and that's another tragedy because people have forget about it. Things have changed now tremendously, but still the wounds of those massacres live on. 1994, I think Pakistan was, we had actually a civilian government in place, democratically elected. I think Nawaz Sharif was the Prime Minister. No, I think probably yes, Prime Minister, Benazir was Prime Minister by then, because 93, Nawaz Sharif has already been removed from power. Benazir was Prime Minister. She came back to power for the second time. So Pakistan's political situation was also light. It was, although we had this transition from one elected government to other, but things were not very much settled in this country. Pakistan was also experiencing political, upheavals. It was continuing actually saga in the country. But Pakistan itself has seen many, this kind of what you call target killings and others, but it's not nowhere in that scale. We had this kind of sectarian violence. We had militant violence. We have seen actually later on, not 1994, but later on, suicide bombing, which left thousands of people dead. But certainly, what happened? What happened there actually was nothing. Was actually nothing compared to what was happening here. So I think probably it did create this kind of this sentiments here. But as I said earlier, people are not that much interested in the foreign news and foreign. It may have affected people who read newspapers. There was no television channels at that point. I think only one Pakistan television, and that was the monopoly. We did not have private TV channels, and the access to the foreign media was also very much limited. So whatever news was coming, actually shipping through, was being published in English language newspapers, and that has not that much of effect on general public. So the situation, yes, actually people did feel about it, but not to the scale where in other countries, or basically where the access to information was there. The basic question is access to information. That was also a factor in people's not having full information of what really happened there. I think yes, there must be condemnation. I don't remember exactly where, but when it was being discussed in United Nations or other forums, I think Pakistan did actually actively condemn the whole thing. But basically, it was what was called much more of a civil war, and obviously the brutalities were condemned. Let me find out. Pakistan was part of the peacekeeping force, which was sent later by United Nations there. You can check it further. So that way, yes, Pakistani forces were there, were sent actually part of the UN peacekeeping forces. Lot of coverage was coming, first-hand reporting, because they had the reporters on the ground reporting for that. So, and this kind of story does have a lot of coverage. So I think probably as far as international media was concerned, it was covered extensively, even features and also all the brutalities which took place, the massive displacement of people. Not only it was massacre, but also displacement of people. Millions of people were displaced and were forced to take refuge in other countries. So I think yes, international media, it was the biggest story at that point of time, and was given extensive coverage. I think probably I know, yes, I still remember some of the atrocities, the pictures which came out were horrific. Also it was not the guns which were used, actually it was most of the death came through hacking, and machetes were used, and then actually there were also, particularly the plight of women, which came out very actually was also actually reported in the international media. Because in this kind of conflict, in the civil war type of it's basically women and children who suffered most. I think probably this obviously because that was the weapon which was used commonly there. So I think probably when this kind of civil war or intra-tribal war, just certainly actually it's not like actually people, because people were also involved. It's like not actually a group of armed men were not the only one, but basically the entire population was actually involved in this massacre. I think probably it's one of the lessons of how this kind of tribal warfare or ethnic conflict can turn into this kind of human tragedy. So that's very important to read about it, where we haven't seen this kind of scale of massacre afterwards, but certainly it does not mean that the world is peaceful now.